There we are, recording now, just so we keep a wee record of it. So welcome everybody to Indie Authors Cafe. Sorry we can't be Watersons. Maybe you've got your own coffee, tea, something beside you. Then I've got my cup.
Water.
Is that? She's saying that just now. You know, there's other clear drinks that we wouldn't necessarily know the difference.
But Beatrix has come in to join us as well.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad she's back from her walk, because she's a special guest.
Mm-hmm. Which means my tea maker's here.
Oh, well, that's good. So Debra, this book, The Magical Tearoom on the Hill, Recipes, Tales and Adventures.
Yes.
An unusual combination for a book. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why we've got this combination together then.
So I set about once we'd opened and started the company as doing market stores and things, and then once we opened the Tearoom, I was constantly working from my recipes that I tweaked from other things, wrote my own recipes, and there were bits of paper everywhere. So eventually I kind of got them all together in a folder, and Mr. M coming in, and it just kind of made sense to actually write a book. And then when I was in the Tearoom, and we named all the cakes after the customers, and so there'd be a little bit of a tale around like custard creams. It was Dashing Tom, whose birthday it is today, 88-year-old he is today, so happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Yeah. And it kind of made sense, and it was like, well, here's the story about the cake and here's the recipe, and that it's just how it happened, and it just seemed to flow quite nicely. And then I thought, well, people need to know a little bit about me when I was growing up. Where did I come from? Because although I've convinced myself I've got a Scottish accent, I clearly haven't, you know. So being from Halifax, and I thought, well, just do a little bit about me and why I wanted to open the Tearoom and what was the inspiration. Before I knew it, there it was. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. So you had the Tearoom. So the magical Tearoom did exist. Like I said, we've just said it's a year since it's closed, but and that was, I know that was a dream of yours, wasn't it? Just to have a Tearoom.
Yes. Yeah, it was from a very early age. You know, that was my dream. Let me have my own Tearoom. And one of my all-time favorite people was my grandma. So she was just the best person ever. But she and my granddad used to spend their Saturday afternoons going out on the bus, because they got a free bus pass. So they'd go out, and every Saturday they'd go to a cafe somewhere, and they'd get tea and cake somewhere. And then when I used to go and see my grandma on a Sunday, she'd be telling me about where she went, what she liked, what she didn't like, and can you believe that this cafe did this? And you know, one of her pet hates was, and people still do it now, you know, you go into a cafe and they bring you your teacup on a tray, and inside your nice clean cup there is the milk jug. Why do that? You know, I don't want these germs. And that was one of my grandma's pet hates. And she said, you know, so it became, well, actually what I want to do is I want to open a Tearoom that my grandma would be proud of, that my grandma would want to sit in, you know. So, and I kind of think, you know, maybe she was there looking down on me saying, do you know what?
Yeah. So you did it. And I think that's the thing about this book, is that I kind of feel that I was there. You know, I really wish, for those of you who know me, you know that I absolutely love tea, right? I mean, tea, cake, going for afternoon tea, lovely china, you know, like the wee cake stands, all that kind of stuff is, you know, is just my idea of heaven. And what comes across is, yeah, you've got that physical aspect of what you created in the Tearoom, but it was such a social space, and it was about the people. And that's what's there, is just that you really connected with the people that came into your shop. They weren't just a customer.
No, it wasn't. And I didn't want to be one of those places where I stood behind the counter. One second. Can you do that later? I can hear what he's doing, and the noise is going through me. He actually made a loaf of bread this morning, and he's cutting the loaf of bread up. That's what he's doing. But the noise is it's distracting. Yeah. So I didn't want to be a tea room where I stood behind the counter, served you your tea and cakes, and then went on to the next customer. I wanted to get to know the people. I wanted to find out about them, and I wanted them to feel special for that time when they came into the tea room, for whatever was going on in their lives. I wanted them to feel special, and when they left the tea room, I wanted them to feel better than they did when they came into the tea room. Yeah. I
think you've actually managed to do that with your book, because I think that's what that's what Debra's book is. Let's say, so she's got all these recipes in here about how to make her cakes, and her biscuits and her jams, and but what you've also got, as you said, you'd named, most of your things are named after people. Tom's custard creams, is it? Tom's?
Yes. Yeah, Dashing Tom's custard creams. Yes. Yeah.
But I think the beauty of how you've written this is that it does kind of feel you can sit down and actually just read it. If you read the stories, you read the little bits about the people, how the things came about. And I think you actually feel better having been in the book, almost like you've been in the tea room. You've kind of been in the book, and it's not just a recipe book going, all right, I fancy making custard creams today. How do I make them? Look at it. It's actually, you've got that really, it's like a warm hug. I think that's what it feels like.
That's what I wanted it to be, and that's what I wanted the tea room to be. And it's not just a recipe book. You don't have to be wanting to make things to read the book. You can actually, it can sit on your coffee table, and it can be something for you to read the stories, yeah.
So how about how did this the dairy and gluten-free thing come about as well? Because that's what your recipes are really geared around, people that don't eat dairy.
That kind of happened by mistake, really. Well, not by mistake. It just when I was we ran a training company before we started the baking business, and I used to go out and I'd take cakes out to people, and I think of this. And there was one particular person that every time I went out to her, she said, I can't try that. She says, because I'm celiac. I was like, all right, celiac, what's that? So, you've got to be gluten. I've got to be gluten free. It's like, gluten? What is gluten? I hadn't a clue. So I said to her, don't you worry, I'll make you a chocolate cake that's gluten free. Honestly, you have never seen anything like it in your life. You'd have thought I'd never baked before. And it was like, my goodness me, what do people do when they're gluten free if they can't have these cakes? So it became almost like my mission of, I am going to get a cake. I am going to make a gluten free cake. And I made that one, and then I made another, and then we started doing the farmers markets. And I found that people were coming to the farmers market and they were saying, are you the person that makes gluten-free stuff? And I was like, oh, well, yes, I do actually. Yeah. And then they'd come back, and it just kind of grew from there. And then once we opened the tea room, more and more people came, and they said, oh, I hear that you do gluten-free cakes. And it just spiraled from there then, really. Yeah. And then I spent, just to see what it was like, I spent a month living as a celiac. So I was very strict with myself. Honestly, what an eye-opener that was. And through that, I got to know lots of people. And I decided that, do you know what? People who have to have a gluten-free diet or a celiac have to take second best, because they can have a brownie, which when I rule the world, brownies will be banned because they're just an undercooked chocolate cake. So they'd have a brownie or a meringue, and that was it. So in the tea room, I never did brownies. I always said no, there'd be no brownies. And it just became like, and it was almost a challenge of, can I make this gluten-free cake as good as the non-gluten-free version? And that became my little challenge. So yeah, and hopefully I've managed it. Yes.
So when you were writing, you started writing the book, and when I remember when you and I first met, and you brought out this big folder that you had.
Yes.
That you had actually you'd kind of created your book.
Yes.
In an A4 folder, because you had all this stuff printed out that how you wanted it to look.
Yes.
I'm curious, I suppose, just now, is how does the book compare to your A4 folder? You know,
So I don't quite know how you did it, but actually what you did was you created my book exactly how I imagined it to be. In my head, this is what I had, you know. It was, I just couldn't believe it when it was done, you know. And it's just fabulous, you know. You talk about you're making dreams come true. Well, you really did, you know, because I never thought I'd get so that I could actually publish my own book, and here it is, you know, and it's mine, you know, and it's got me on the front, and you know, I'd quite like to have that waist, you know, but yeah.
You talk a little bit about that cover, because you know that was like when you're starting to put together a book, and you're looking at a cover and you're thinking about a cover. People often have, you know, ideas about what they want and how it was, and we talked a lot about the fact that you had these stories. It wasn't just a recipe book, so it wasn't going to make sense just to have photographs of your cakes on the. It really had to include things for you, and there was lots of different components in there. And the way really to create that was to get an illustrator to do that. And yeah, we had the very lovely Helen Koch.
And she did the most fabulous job, because and what people say is there's little Beatrix, because there's lots of tales of me and Beatrix on the hill. You know, she's my little best friend, and she is just, and she actually spreads over, and it's great. And if people actually look, I don't know if you can tell, but you might not know if you don't know the area, but the hills in the background are Langdale Pikes in the Lake District.
Yep.
That's my all-time favourite place. And there's a story about Langdale Pikes in there. And Helen just, she just kind of got it, you know. And then there's Mr. M on the back.
The tea maker.
Playing his guitar. And that's what he used to do in the tea room. And then you've got some people. And what I wanted was, I didn't want to put customers, because there were so many customers. Like if I chose 4 customers to sit at a table and have them drawn, it'd be like, well, why did you pick those 4? Yeah. So what I asked Helen was, could she draw some people? Could she put people around a table? And she looked at lots of the photographs. And I said, could you make it so that people will go, is that me? Is that me? You know, and there's a few people that I think you could almost imagine those people to be. So hopefully they will do the same and go, oh, is that such and such on the back of the book? So, and it's just brilliant. Yeah, she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she absolutely did, and I think you look absolutely fabulous on the front cover. That's it. It's just definitely how you are. It's beautiful. So I just want to pick up a little bit there on Beatrix, right? Because you know she is definitely a core companion and part of the story. So going out in the hills, as you've just mentioned, is a key thing for you. You just love the hills, don't you? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What does it do for you actually going out on the hill? What does it do for you?
So we all have stress in our lives, you know, we all have things going on, and and you set off on a walk, and you set off, and you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, you know, and you go a little bit further, and it's almost like calories dropping off. It's almost like the stress drops off as you walk up the hills, you know, and by the time, you know, you've been out a couple of hours and you're like, what was I worried about? What was I stressed about? And it's just amazing. I like going out. I like going out by myself, actually. Although I love being around people, I like to walk by myself. I take Beatrix, and we have very, very deep conversations, me and Beatrix. You know, we chat away to each other, and you know, and we always have a picnic. And I like to go up high, not necessarily because it's a mountain, but because when you get up onto the mountains, it's that sense of freedom. You know, there's no cars, there's no roads, you can't see any civilization, you know, and you look around and you go, my goodness me, this is me and the wilderness. Just, yeah. But Beatrix looks after me.
And for Lynn's benefit, Beatrix is a collie. She's a black and white collie.
black and white border collie. Yes. Who knows how gorgeous she is. Yeah.
She has indeed. And just to say, if anybody's got any questions, there is the chat facility on Zoom. So if you've got a question you want to type into the chat, we'll get a chance hopefully to ask Debra a few questions if you want to put them in. So you've got Beatrix, you've got you're out in the hills, and there's a few stories in there about you being together and what, but there's one particular story that is a really dramatic. I mean, it's a really, really dramatic story. I mean, that could have been a book in itself, I think, you know, that story.
It could, yes.
So
I bet there's very few people can actually say they've written a recipe book that has that story in them. Yeah.
So going to, I think that, tell us a little bit about what happened to you that day.
So I was going up one of my favourite Munros, which is Ben Lawes, which is out in Glenlyon. So you go out past Killing, go out that way, and in Perthshire, and it's just the most fabulous hill, and I love it. Beatrix loves it, and she knows every bit of it. So you go up 2 Munros, you go up Ben Glass, and then you walk along a ridge, and then you go on to get to the top of Ben Lawes. And this was August 2018, and we were having an absolutely fantastic day. It was just me and Beatrix. There were other walkers about, and Beatrix chatted to them, and she got them to throw stones, and I chatted to a couple of people. And when you're out walking, sometimes you pass people, sometimes people pass you, and then you pass the same people again, and you chat and whatever. So although sometimes you're by yourself, you're not exactly by yourself, you can see people. And I mean, I was a fit person, you know, cycle around Scotland, walk the Munros and everything. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I eat cake. Eat cake and chocolate. And at the top of the hill, I realised what was happening, and I was having a heart attack. And at that point, when I was having the heart attack, it was literally me and Beatrix. And I was like, right, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I thought, do you know what? I'll start walking down the easy track. So I tried to start walking down the easy track, and realised I couldn't. So I had to sit down, and it's that sensation that people talk about, feeling like there's an elephant on your chest. That is what it felt like. But by trying to walk down the easy track, I actually took myself out of mobile signal as well. You know, so that added to the excitement a little bit. So I thought, my goodness me, what am I going to do? I can't phone 999. I can't phone anybody. And you kind of have all these feelings going on of, my goodness me, what if I die up here? You know, there was that point where I thought, you know, what about my children? You know, what about Jim? You know, what am I going to do? And so I was kind of sitting down, and Beatrix obviously realised what was going on. And Beatrix, as you can tell, you haven't heard Beatrix now. I mean, she's a quiet dog, unless the postman comes. But at this point, I was in like almost like a maybe like an amphitheatre type thing. That's how it seemed. And Beatrix started barking, and she started barking and barking and barking, and so much so it was even irritating me. She was barking so much, and what that did was all the people that had passed us, that we'd passed, that had played with Beatrix going on, realised that actually this is not what Beatrix was doing earlier on. So before I knew it, there were people around me who were helping me. There was somebody that walked back up the hill to get a mobile signal, to phone for the emergency services, who came along with a big helicopter. So they took me away in the helicopter, and these absolutely fantastic people. So one of them had to walk Beatrix back down the mountain. Meanwhile, somebody had to phone Jim and say, oh, by the way, that daft wife of yours that goes walking up the mountains by herself has had a heart attack. But before you go up to Dundee to pick her up, can you go and pick your dog up first? So, but yeah, and I mean, it was on the top of, you know, it was while we were waiting for the helicopter, and I remember there was a lady there, and she was, fortunately for me, they ended up being a retired GP. There was a midwife, or all sorts of people that had medical knowledge. But I remember one lady, and she was laid on the floor next to me, and she was holding my hand, and you will never ever know how that felt. That was just, that's what I needed. Yeah, because there wasn't anything anybody could do, but holding my hand was the best thing that she could have done. Yeah. But I'm still here, you know.
Fantastic, fit and healthy, and been back out on hills again. So it's...
Yes. Well, you know, I'm trying to get up. I've planned that I will be going back up Ben Lawers this year once we can travel across Scotland. But that is my plan, that this year I will be back up Ben Lawers, and I will walk back down rather than taking a helicopter ride back down. Yeah. So, but we'll see how it goes. You know, I'm umming and ahhing as to whether I'm going to take Beatrix with me, because now that I've had a chance to reflect about it, it was quite traumatic for me at the time, but it was so traumatic. Now I've realised how traumatic it was for Beatrix, because her best friend, who she looks after, it's her job to keep me safe, was whisked away by this giant machine, and then left with all these strangers. You know, so I'm actually going to rewrite that section of the book, but I'm going to write it from Beatrix, as though Beatrix is telling the story, because yeah.
And I suppose that kind of does, that nicely brings us on to the little part I always wanted to kind of pick up on now. We've got another few minutes. So if anybody's, thanks, Catherine, you've perfect timing. He's just saying if anybody's got questions, please put them in the chat. So next, because you're, it's not that this isn't going to be the end of your writing journey.
No, I enjoyed it. It was, yeah, I did. I liked it. Yes. Yeah.
So,
I've always liked writing. Yeah.
And what's on the cards then? What have you started to do now?
So, and it was that idea of thinking about, because, you know, when you're in lockdown, when we had the tea room, we had to have a dog walker for looking after Beatrix, because our border collie, she just needs to be out and about all the time. And we had a dog walker, and then last March, she's now got us full time, and we're here full time. And I started watching her and watching how she reacts to different things and thinking, I never thought about it from that point of view. And, you know, you could see that she was a little bit unnerved at first, that we weren't going out. You know, she'd be waiting in the morning. Oh, it must be time for you to go now. Oh, what? You're not going out? You know, and that idea, and having to see people with masks on, you know, and not realizing what it's like for dogs, and for dogs like border collies, because they're so clever. So I'm actually going to write about Beatrix's life, but I'm going to do it from as though Beatrix is telling us. So that's my next tale. And there is another story about her being a hero on the hills as well. So there's quite a few things. She's just such a clever, intelligent. I want to say dog, but she's more than a dog. She's more than a dog. Yes, she's just So that's my plan. Yeah.
And I've read some little snippets that Deborah has written, and it's honestly, you're a brilliant storyteller as well. And I think that's what I mean about. Yeah, you've got these recipes. I mean, but it's the way that you tell the story. You know, the way that you share stuff about the people that you've met and worked with in the cafe, and the stories of the hills and all the other bits about Beatrix. Yeah, so absolutely. You know, I can't wait until we get to read a bit more from. Although obviously Beatrix is writing this. You know, Deborah's just the person that's actually helping with the.
That's Beatrix back.
Right on cue. That's what she's saying. Yeah, it's me.
There must be somebody coming past, because she only barks when somebody comes past. Yeah.
So Cash is going to put a little link up just about your where people can get the book, and if they want to buy a copy of it, and also just so before we kind of finish up, I want to just touch on what we said. Unfortunately your tea room has closed, but you have taken your business online.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how that's working for you and what you're doing.
So because we do the gluten and dairy free stuff, it's kind of things that people are looking for. And once the tea room had to close, because we were so small, we just couldn't possibly open again with all the restrictions. So now I've got an online business where I send out boxes of cakes, and the boxes have 6 little individual cakes in, and they change each month, and they get sent out to you, so people can still enjoy our goodies. But yeah, I think it's not the same as having the tea room. But when I get emails back from people or messages back, and they're saying, you know, it's just fantastic how they can have the gluten and dairy free cakes. So
yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's been. I've tasted them, folks. You know, they are absolutely gorgeous, and that's the thing. I think that they don't. I mean, I've had the occasional gluten or dairy-free thing. You know, like when you happen to be in somebody else, and you've got something off the shelf, and they often taste rubbish.
Yes,
but your cakes are lovely. You know, so not somebody who needs to eat dairy and gluten-free, but they are absolutely lovely. So yeah, definitely.
That's what I'm trying to do to have it so that everybody can have them. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions, and Carson's put a link to your website up for you as well. So yeah, please, folks, you know, just you can check. And what you can do if anybody's on here just now, you can save the chat. There's kind of 3 little dots beside the chat. If you actually click there, you can save the chat down onto your computer. So if you haven't got a pen handy, you can write the address down. Right, so we've got a question, and a question from Kim, not me actually, somebody else called Kim, and said, who has been the most inspiring person you've met in your cafe, and why?
Oh, wow. Gosh, so many people. I guess that Dashing Tom comes to mind. So he was, he's actually 88 today, but he came in, and we called him Dashing Tom, not because he rushes about, but because he's very dapper, and he always came in with his with his three-piece suit on and his tie and his collar. And he was just such a fantastic person. He used to come in and he used to make everybody feel special in the tea room. And he'd sit there and he'd sit for hours in the tea room. But everybody that came into the tea room, he got to know. And he wanted to know them and he wanted to talk to them. And then one day, on his way to the tea room, he actually fell and he broke his hip. And he used getting back to the tea room as almost an incentive to get better. You know, if I can get to the tea room, I'll be getting better. So yeah, so he has to be very inspiring. Yes,
that's cool. That's so good. People saying, yep, they're loving the idea of Beatrix telling the stories and wanting to know more about that. I mean, the other thing I've just seen recently, because I mean, in the book, well, I'll do a little flick through here for you folks, right? I mean, you can see we've got lots of the recipes and pictures and stuff there in the, but you've actually had people sharing their photographs of them making your cakes as well.
Yes, so that's what's happening at the moment. So they're making things and sharing them, and it's great, you know, it's great to see that. Yeah.
So there you are. So well done. You're inspiring the nation to bake. You're telling us wonderful stories about things that have gone on. You've immortalised some of your people from the cafe by giving their cakes and bakes after their names. Honestly, you know, what better person could we have to sort of come and talk to us today about your writing journey? And not only that, but we've got a wonderful dog who's part of that too, and we'll look forward to reading about Beatrix's adventures and her telling.
And of course, Mr. M. You know, we can't forget him. Yeah,
absolutely not. I mean, he might not have appeared on screen today. We heard him briefly, but yeah,
he didn't like the screen. Yeah.
The man behind the scenes that helped as well. So I think we're probably about out of time for this section. I mean, Debra's going to be part of the group, so you might be lucky and actually have Debra in your group later to kind of talk to her a bit more. But I think, can I just say just now, thank you so much, Debra, for sharing that, and it was lovely to hear from you. There is a reactions button if any of you are on your laptop, and you can actually give her a little round of applause, even if you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everybody for listening. Yeah. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Right, now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pause. So there we go. We are recording. Yeah. So the question about getting the book into bookshops, and then what it is possible. For most self-publishing writers, it's not an automatic thing. It's also, if you're doing print on demand, and that you can, you'll have your book available out there on sale with most of the online bookstores. But if we're talking this here about getting into bookshop and into kind of bricks and mortar stores, that's the thing that's like most people they probably want as an author to be able to walk into a bookshop and actually see your book on the bookshelf. It's probably the big thing that everybody thinks, oh, they would love to have. There's a couple of things that we need to kind of do to prepare for that, and a little bit to understand about how a bookshop works. So I think somebody might have their mic unmuted. I don't know if it's you, John, or whether it's, yeah, just a little bit of background. I'll come to you in a little second, thank you. There's a little bit about, you know, thinking about it from the bookshop's point of view. Just because it's a bookshop doesn't mean they're going to take everybody's books, you know, so it's knowing whether or not your book would fit with that particular bookshop. Often you've got chains, you've got the likes of Waterstones and WH Smith as the kind of big book chains, or you've got the local, the smaller independents. And those bookshops will work in different ways. The bigger bookshops have buyers that make decisions on whether they can get the book into a store. Smaller bookshops, often there might be the owner that just runs their individual. They will decide whether or not they want to take a book into the shop. And bookshops tend to run on a kind of sale or return basis. So it's a bit different. And I was quite shocked when I established this way back when I first got into publishing, that bookshops from a big publisher's perspective, they are pitching their books to the bookshops for, you know, later on. They'll be doing their Christmas stock, you know, just now. You know, you're usually talking about Easter, they're talking about what they're going to take in for Christmas. They're trying to get to the buyer. They're trying to give all these reasons why the buyers would love this particular book that's coming out, what's going to happen with the marketing of it, where's the author in terms of their profile, so that they know enough about are people going to buy that book? Because that's really what they want to know. Is it going to be worth their time to put that book into the bookstore so that people will want to buy it? Because otherwise, for them, there's no reason for them to have a book in their store if they don't think their customers would buy it. And while they're doing that, they're agreeing the discount rate that bookshop's going to get from the sales price so that they can make money on that sale. Now, the industry standard is about 55%. So from the cover price, their 55% discount is what the kind of the bookstores are looking for as a starting point. Now, we know that you can negotiate different amounts. Our online sales are 40% usually of discount that we would give, and you know, most independents one-to-one arrangements will certainly be around that. We'll have a little chat, you know, with John about his experience of getting into Waterson's with his books. But you know, that's the thing, is you've got to give a high rate of discount to a bookstore to make it worth their while. And they also want them sale or return. Few bookshops will take what we call firm sales, which are that, yep, I've bought the book, it's now mine. If I don't sell it, then I need to do something with it as the bookshop. Most bookshops want the option on being able to return the books to you if they don't sell. And the contracts for a lot of bookstores, and certainly within the publishing industry as general, was 18 months. And if they hadn't sold the books, so they would maybe take an order. If you're thinking of a bigger publisher, they'd take an order for 200 books, and if in 18 months they'd only sold 20 books, well, 180 books are actually due back to you. You might have been paid for them already though, right? So you've been paid for, you now owe them money. Depends, different companies work in slightly different ways. And the reality is that most books then actually don't get returned to the publisher, because the publisher has to pay for the postage for them to come back. So they either destroyed the books. In fact, they actually got ripped apart. They would maybe rip off the covers, and the covers would be posted back, because then it was a lot cheaper for the publisher to get the ripped cover back. Or if they got the books back, then sometimes they would have stickers on them and things like that, so that the publisher's then left with books that, you know, how do we then sell these on? So there's a whole ecological thing for me about what happens in the book world. And a little fascinating story is that when they were building the M74 extension, which kind of went round about the kind of like the Kingston Bridge, that bit that kind of went round about there and joined on further down to just at the M8, the base of that part of the motorway is pulped books, because there are so many books still just pulped because of this industry process about them printing, you know, like thousands and thousands of books and sending them to bookstores who don't sell them and sending them back. They were getting pulped. So whilst it's absolutely something you would want to happen, it's not always easy to get into a bookstore. And it might not be in your best interest if what you're trying to do is to make a lot of sales, right? It's not the only place, you know, to kind of be there. But so what I'd like to do is John, I'm going to take myself off of Spotlight, and I'm going to bring you, John, if I can find you. Here we are. John, if you want to, here we are. If you want to unmute, there we go.
I can.
Hi there, John. So tell us a little bit then about your experience, because you've got, particularly it's your series, your Pride of series that have you've managed to capture Waterson's attention with the book. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how that's been.
Hey, well, as you know, I first published a book through yourselves, but it was a science fiction book. And there was no way that I could. I tried various outlets like Forbidden Planet and places like that. There was no way I was going to be able to get it into retail outlets. And then I come up with the idea of the Scottish sports family history books that I write, which, although they're based on football, they're really a kind of more like a who do you think you are, or why do you ken you are, because I'm not allowed to use the BBC programme. It's under copyright, you know. So what do you ken you are? So it basically takes famous footballers or famous teams, and then it researches their family histories. And the family histories can be as fascinating as the fame that the footballer maybe had captured during his playing days. So I first approached Waterson's, and they put me onto the book buyer, who's based in, funnily enough, Debra, based in Dundee, where I think you might, is that where you get a helicopter to? Yeah. So she's based in Dundee, and so I put the idea to her. At the time, it was just this, the Celtic book, which was the 1967 Lisbon Lions. So she, obviously, you've got to send a copy of the book to her. They have a look at it, and she came back right away and said, these will sell no problem in Glasgow, and Waterson's would be happy to take them. So what basically her job is to authorise them, and to authorise them in the stores that she thinks where they'll sell. So I'm only allowed to go to various stores in Glasgow, and it's then up to the Waterson's they have a scheme called the Community Activities Scheme, and what I do is I sell the books to them on the Community Activity Scheme, and Kim was talking about various percentages there. The percentage that I was able to contract at was 50%, and it's not a sale or return basis. Waterson's buy these books off me. They don't pay you until the end of the month following the invoice. And so what you do is you then approach the managers. Each manager will then decide under the Community Activities Scheme whether they'll take some of the books. And obviously you've got to keep going. Obviously, if they sell out, you've got to keep going back. But sometimes they'll take up to 10 books at a time off me, which means I'm selling 10 books and I know that they're not going to come back to me and ask for any of that money back. That's a sale. But what I do is I monitor it myself, and sometimes, well, 10 books, I'm not sure whether you would sell that quite quickly. So how about 5 or whatever? And we kind of negotiate the numbers of books that they'll take. Unfortunately, as with everything, like Debra's Tearoom, Waterson's is closed. I've got a new book that Kim's going, the 4th book in the series, Kim and Sinclair are going to be producing for me, hopefully. Is it me? Well, we're still aiming for me, Kim?
Yeah.
We're still aiming for me. Still waiting for the payment, right enough. Yeah, but that it's on the way, Kim. It's it's coming. It's coming. So it's going to be difficult, and this is going to have a different marketing slant because it's based on the Hearts team. So I'm guessing that if Waterson's take it, they're going to be directing me more to Edinburgh and the East Coast. However, I'm going to be able to pitch this book with a different slant. It is, again, it's family history, but it's based on the Hearts players who signed up during the First World War, and it's an absolutely tragic story. So it is. And so, although it's footballing history, it's family history, it's also military history. And my editor says that it's the best book I've ever written. So that's good. That's good praise indeed. Given that my editor's my daughter journalist, she doesn't dish out praise very highly. Yes. So if you think, likes of Debra's book, is it Yorkshire you're based, Debra? Yes. Yeah.
Well, she's from Yorkshire, but she's actually she's based in Kirkintilloch. She's just around the corner for you.
Oh, right. Is that where the Tearoom on the hill is?
No, she's muted. It was in Falkirk actually, so it was in Falkirk.
Obviously, you could pitch you've got to do a pitch to Waterson's basically, but you've got to do it through their book buyer. But if you thought this would, I'm now not quite sure where you would be pitching it, whether you're pitching it in Yorkshire or Stirlingshire or whatever. But obviously you want to pitch it where you think that you're going to pick up sales, and you pitch that and say, I think this will sell well in the, let's say, the Stirlingshire area. And Watterson would then come back and say, yeah, we like your idea. Approach these managers at such and such Watterson stores. You've been authorised, by community activities. They will then decide, well, we'll take 2 books, see how it goes, or we'll take 10 books and see how it goes, that sort of thing. So that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Because that's the thing is, it's just knowing, like you say, it's knowing your book. You really need to know how to pitch your book and know who your audience is for your book, so that you can help. And that's the same as with, all publishers, and have to still pitch their books to bookstores. Bookstores don't just take them because the publisher publishes something. They still have to know that it's going to be of value to them. And it's great, particularly because you have the series. That's the thing, is once you have got the credibility for, and we knew that those would sell because definitely Glasgow area and the books that you've done.
Basically that's what Watterson said to me. So you could write a book about any book about Celtic or Rangers and it'll sell.
Yeah, there you are, Debra. Cakes for the Rangers teams.
Put a football scarf around your neck and it'll sell. There you are. Carson's did a little link up there to some stuff for your books. If anyone's got any questions, if you want to ask anything, certainly just put it in the chat, and we can have a chat about it. I know, John, from speaking to other publishers, because we're members of Publishing Scotland, and I get together with a lot of even the kind of bigger publishers that are based in Scotland every now and again. That getting to the book buyer is the difficult thing. And I think, what we say is, well done in actually managing that she actually saw it and looked at it, because there's a lot of publishers who are constantly trying to get stuff across her desk. They just don't get any floor space, really from her. So did you stalk her? Did you? What was your tactics then? Did you send her a biscuit or? No, I've never actually met her, to be quite honest. It's all been done by email. I'm more friendly with the managers now. Because obviously they were seeing me on a regular basis.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, and I'm fortunate in that I've got a free train pass, free bus pass. You've got to deliver the books yourself. So, if you had to start posting them, and you're only getting 50% back from them, you'd probably make nothing of it. Through Watterson's, I'm probably only making about £1.70 a book.
Yeah.
And that's on a £9.99 retail pitch.
Yeah.
So, I make more money selling it through Amazon than I do, and or if I sell it personally myself, that I make more money. But it's real kudos if you get it into a bookstore and you can say this book sells in Waterson's, then it snowballs from there. You get that additional sort of marketing, sales, advertising oomph that, oh, you've got a book in a bookstore. You know,
yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Jeannie was asking there about sort of getting to independent bookstores, and it'd be the same thing. Really, it's about pitching to that store and knowing that you really need to know the bookshop. So I'm trying to do a sort of blanket email out to every bookshop that's there and say, have my book. It's not going to work. You really need to get to know the bookshop.
I mean, maybe you'll be able to suggest something, but I found that there's a real dearth of independent bookshops in Glasgow. I mean, there's second-hand bookshops and things like that, or antique bookshops, but actually independent bookshops, I found it really difficult. And there is a bookshop in Belfast, and I thought, Belfast, they'll take the Rangers and Celtic book right away, but the Great Divide is still over there. So, well, we'll maybe take the Rangers book, but there's no way we're selling the Celtic book. There's the bookshop.
Yeah, I mean, in Glasgow, there's one in Hindland. But again, Hindland, they might take them, but knowing if you get, what I would say to you is if you're interested in MD pitching to an independent store, go into the bookshop. First and foremost, don't go in and try and sell. Go in as a customer and look and see what's there. Yeah, Stockbridge, for example, there's definitely there's bookshops there. Go and look and see what is on the shelves. I mean, there's a lovely shop in Linlithgow, and if you wanted to sell anything about railway history, that was your place, because there were so many people around there. They had a real clientele who loved railway, anything to do with the railway line, and just so and it was just by getting to know that. Although it wasn't the only thing they sold, but if you know that that's what they really love, then you can go in and say, I think my book would sit well here because. And having spoken to bookshop owners, because again, through Publishing Scotland, I get to meet, sometimes some bookshop owners, and they're doing the same. They're saying, don't just tell us you've got a book. That's no use to me. You have to understand if this is and same way you have to understand your book. The bookshop are looking to see for you to say, well, yeah, I can see it definitely fits here. And here's how else I am marketing my book. Here's my profile. Here's what else I'm doing. Probably for these books slightly different because of the profile for these books were the football teams. So that was the big bonus really for you. The football teams were the real seller pitch, and the fact that you then had something that was a bit interesting and different. With the family history thing. But for anybody else, really understand your book. Go and visit the bookshop. Get to talk to the bookshop owner if you can, even just to find out what sells. Don't go in with I've got this book. This is what I hear this all the time from people saying, I went into this bookshop and they didn't want my book and they're really huffed and they're upset and they're like storming away out. Kind of going, how dare they? And you think, well, put yourself in their shoes. Find out a bit about them. As with all things, building relationships is going to be far more important. And your relationships with the managers, that's it, John, as well, isn't it, that you've got is the ongoing stuff. So thank you so much. Anybody else got any more questions around just to see? So we've got Stockbridge. How do you publish your book in Amazon? Oh, that's a whole other thing. That's print on demand and straight out to Amazon via Ingram Spark or direct. You can do direct to Amazon. You can upload your book direct to Amazon and use KDP ebook and print if you want to. And Lynn saying also small independent gift shops may be worth talking to. Yep, got some of my books into my local card shop. And that is something that's really worth considering for anybody else. If there's a particular topic that you have that might be useful as a gift book, or some cafes even will stock books to sell. As things start to open up again, the cafe might actually have a book sitting there. You might have the garden centres. Some of the garden centres maybe will take books. Some of them have got agents that pitch books into the garden centre. So again, it depends on how they take their stock. Of the bigger ones and Dobies and stuff like that have got, Lomond Books, I think, still do a lot of the distribution into those garden centres. So really just thinking about what would make sense for you, your book, where could you get it to, and have a go and see, go and speak to them first and foremost, and just to ask the question, to always carry a copy with you anyway. It's like one of those things, never leave home without one. It's like once you've got it, because you have a conversation with somebody and say, oh, where can I get your book, even if it's at the bus stop? Actually, I just happen to have one here. Would you like it? It's always a great way for sales. So thank you, John. That was really helpful. Really appreciate you doing that. I'll take you off. Right, so I'm going to stop the recording again.